easy to gather evidence.
More about alleged war crimes being committed in Ukraine. For that, I'm joined now by Kai Ambos. He's a professor of law in Göttingen and counsel at the International Criminal Court in The Hague. Thanks for being with us. Professor, investigations are underway into war crimes committed in Ukraine. Could Russia find itself facing charges of crimes against humanity or even genocide?
Well, I would say it's not easy to gather evidence on the ground and even for war crimes, and the threshold for crimes against humanity and genocide would be much higher. We would have to prove a policy to attack the civilian population, and this policy could only come out of the Kremlin. So it's very difficult. It's difficult enough to identify concrete victims and perpetrators of war crimes on the ground.
Now, tell us how you go about gathering that evidence in crimes of this nature. Does the ICC have people on the ground, or do you rely on the work of journalists and NGOs in the field?
No, certainly not. With all due respect, we don't rely on the work of journalists and not even on human rights organizations like Human Rights Watch. I mean, we you know, all this evidence, all this kind of information you are finding as investigative journalists or NGOs is not evidence we can use in court. You know, so the problem is that we have many people on the ground. Also, of course, we have the Ukrainians investigating, we have the ICC people, the investigator of the Office of the Prosecutor, and then we have a kind of mess. And then you talk to witnesses, and maybe the 10th time the investigator of OTP will talk to the witness will be tired. So it could be counterproductive to have too many people on the ground in terms of coordination.
U.S. President Joe Biden, he wants Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, to be put on trial. Could Putin eventually be held accountable for the actions of his forces?
I think eventually, yes. I mean, the term is, of course, flexible. I mean, we are talking about here years and maybe decades, not days or months. As I said, we have to first establish what we call a crime base. We have to find concrete evidence on war crimes, and we have to impute these war crimes to Russian soldiers, and then we have to go up to the chain of command, you know, to the generals, to the superiors, and maybe to Putin and his entourage. But that's a hard job to do. That's hard investigative work, and that takes time.
Neither Russia nor Ukraine accept the jurisdiction of the International Criminal Court. How much of a problem is that? Well,
you are right, they are not state party, they have not ratified the Rome Statute, but Ukraine has accepted the jurisdiction under a specific provision. And on that basis, investigations are going on since end of 2013. We should not forget, we are talking here about a situation which only has erupted or has been radicalized by the invasion of February, but we are talking about possible crimes in eastern Ukraine, in the Crimea. And these crimes have been investigated. They are under investigation. Of course, now the focus is on possible war crimes in the context of the invasion, but the jurisdiction is based on a consent by Ukraine as a territorial state.
What about the timeline here? If cases were to actually get to court, how long would it take for a trial to take place? When could we expect to see something happen legally?
Yeah, I mean, legally, we already see something happening, and we are formally now in an investigation of the Office of the Prosecutor of the International Criminal Court of The Hague. That's legally an investigation, and it takes the time it takes to find enough evidence, for example, to issue arrest warrants, yes, and to formulate an indictment and to formulate charges. That's the time investigators need, and only the investigators know, and the prosecutors, when they have enough evidence together to bring it before the judges, who have to accept it, like in any criminal justice system, accept this evidence as sufficient evidence to go to trial. And that takes time. We have to be patient here.
Professor Ambos, thank you very much for talking with us. That was Kai Ambos, a professor of law in Göttingen and a counsel to the International Criminal Court.